Book 2, Joe Two Trees. Chapter 6, The Joining of Two Clans. I had assumed that Joe and his people had always lived in Pelham Bay Park, and that the story would begin there. Instead, he began his story with Aquahonga, the water we call Bronx River. That is where, in the old time, Joe's ancestors, a clan of about 10 related families, had lived. In the riverside woods, they hunted the many deer. In the river, they fished for salmon, trout, and other fish that would come up from the distant salt water. When summer came, they would travel to a fishing village far downriver. It was called Snackapins. Here, many clans would gather and make temporary homes. They would collect shellfish and gather large numbers of blackfish, bass, mackerel, and even sturgeon. At Snackapins, clans and even tribes from the north, called Siwanoi, would share the land and live peacefully. It was always a good time for the people. At night, clans that never saw each other in winter would meet by the fires and exchange news from different parts of the land. The nearby waters provided food for all, and full bellies made for happy talk. Here, many marriages were arranged. Families who, in those times, had made strong friendships during the summer encampment often would encourage their children to tie bonds, joining them in permanent alliance. A marriage at this place was also thought to be a lucky one that would produce many offspring. By day, the fishermen would take their canoes as far as Sewanhaki, across the water, Long Island shore, and to Monaton, where the waters run fast, Hellgate. When night was coming, they returned with the catch. From the beginning, Joe said, the people had met there each summer. It was a place and time of good medicine. Snackapins had still existed when the first whites began to arrive. He had often wished that it had been his lot to live then, when the people were still alive. Things had changed, though, when the Europeans came. The clan had returned to Aquahonga one fall and found a new settler building a log house near their winter village. They talked to him during that winter, and by spring, the clan had accepted an offer from this new man. He showed metal knives, iron kettles, hatchets, blankets, shirts, and with these, the people reasoned they could make another home in the woods of a different place. The name of that man had been Jonas Bronk, whose purchase is documented in 1641. The clan had spent the following summer at Snackapins, but they knew they would have to find a new home in fall. No more would the high bluffs of Aquahonga echo with their children's laughter. They talked to many families, asking how the land was where they made their winter wigwams. One clan, related to Joe's ancestors through a marriage at Snackapins, asked that the homeless people join them in a place near the holy rocks called Mishow. This was a place of many springs with good water, tall forests, and islands divided by fine waterways. The ducks and geese visited the shores in great numbers. Deer and bear were plentiful on the wooded islands. The clans agreed, and when autumn came, the two turned as one, toward Mishow. After a walk of one day, they stood in the homeland of the new clan. It was a new clan, for now they were one. The spot where they would formally make the bonds was Mishow. These rocks stand, somewhat buried, but still visible today, near the parking lot at Orchard Beach in the Bronx. It was now time to prepare wigwams for the new people. All worked together, and soon saplings were bent and frameworks built. The squaws wove mats of bulrush and cattail reeds. The frames were covered with these mats, and then with slabs of bark. A hole was left at the center of each new roof to allow the cooking smoke to find a way out. Flat stones were brought to cover the chimney holes, and the houses were soon ready. Other things still needed to be done, but the matter of shelter was accomplished. The other details could wait, for tonight would be a celebration. As with the marriage of two people, the joining of two clans called for ritual and feasting. The corn was ready to be harvested. The crops, tended by those few who did not make the trip to Snackapins each summer, were good this year. Many baskets would be filled with winter food when all began the picking, but now enough was taken for a fine meal. The children were sent to gather clams, oysters, mussels, and crabs on the low tide. Even lobsters fell prey to the young hunters. Soon the makings for a fine feast had been brought together near the holy rocks. Piles of firewood were prepared, and every family busily gathered items for the coming festivities. When evening came, all was ready. The fires were lit, and the people began to gather in a large circle around the rocks. Soon the food was served, and all ate till their bellies were bulging. After everyone had eaten, the clan chief, or sachem, rose and walked to the rocks. He talked of welcome, and everyone said in unison, "It is good." The sachem spoke of the large number that now comprised the clan. He said that this would help them to ward off their enemies. He said that numbers also meant more mouths to feed, and ordered the people to be careful in their hunting, not to waste, to share with each other. Council would be held near these rocks to settle any disputes among the clan members. The chief said that a clan as strong as this one should have a powerful name. There were many turtles in the woods and along the shores here, and he would make a fine name for the new group. His strength held up the world. His name would strengthen the clan. He became the totem, their special animal symbol, their name. They were now the Turtle Clan. When the fires began to burn low, the chief said that those who were from the old Mishaw clan and the Aquahanga clan should stand 2 by 2 between the sacred rocks and embrace. This would show the Great Spirit. They were now one family, all branches growing from the same tree. By the time they had done this, the fires were out, and all returned to their homes for the night. The new group flourished, and they did all the things their sachem had ordered on the night of the joining ceremony. They hunted and planted, fished and lived well. Some died, but new children were born often, and they stayed a large clan for many years. During this time, in 1654, a man named Thomas Pell had come to live nearby. He wished to buy land here, and after the people saw that he was a good man who dealt honorably with his Indian neighbors, they agreed to listen to his offer of purchase. Although the Turtle Clan was not directly involved in the transaction, their brothers on the mainland invited them to the deliberations. They were, after all, nearby, and this sale could well affect them, too. Subsequent studies revealed many of the details of what followed. The white man spoke to the Indian delegation for a long time. He promised peace and respect. He said he would interfere with their lives as little as possible. He told them that he would stay away from their holy places and allow them to hunt on the land even after it was his. He promised the red men that he would use the land and its game in ways that would not anger their great spirit. Joe's people listened in silence, and when he had finished, they walked off a little way to make counsel. After everyone had spoken, the leader saw that the agreement would be made. Now he must bargain for a high price. The beads and knives, jackets and pots had simply proven too much for the forest people to resist. The sale was made now. All that remained was a final price. The Indians and white man sat down under a large oak tree that day and made treaty. A steatite smoking pipe was passed from hand to seal the agreement. The Indian people, with their new pots and beads and other treasures, were very much poorer when they finally stood up. The oak tree grew alongside Shore Road, near the present Bartow mansion. It grew there, a landmark from earlier times, in an open field until early in the 20th century, when it was struck by lightning. It subsequently died and rotted. Now an iron fence stands around the spot where Thomas Pell purchased Pelham Bay Park, parts of Westchester, and areas of the Bronx in 1654. The final price must have been one of the best bargains in history. The treaty was otherwise a good one, and both sides lived by it. But the seeds of the end had been sown with its signing. All people who made treaties have one thing in common. None of them lives forever. By the early 1700s, the tide of immigrants from across the sea was just beginning, and they all wanted land. They wanted land to plan on, land to live on, land to buy and sell. Sometimes they acquired it fairly, sometimes questionably. Often they simply stole it or killed the inhabitants. First, with the new weapons, the white man killed all the bear and deer on the island of Manhattan. What could possibly follow except an exodus of the remaining Indians, who depended on the game for food and clothing? Some of the clans and tribes went north and west to join the old enemy, the Iroquois. Others crossed the Bronx and fled through Westchester into Connecticut to ally themselves with the Siwanoy. Some, in the more remote areas, simply stayed where they were and hid. The time was one of great confusion. It was the end, the breaking up of many strong tribes, the scattering of the people. The English had displaced the early Dutch, and it made little difference that Americans would soon displace the English. All had acted in unison on only one front, the displacement of the natives. A war was coming from a country island across the sea, but that was not important to the remnants of Indians who hid in these woods. The Iroquois came still in those years, but they did not come for slaves or tribute. They spoke of peace and of a prophet whose name was Hiawatha. They explained the teachings of this man and their confederacy of 5 great nations. This force, Joe said, was all that was left to defend the Maker's people. They asked us as true Indian brothers to join them in the north. Come, they entreated, and we will adopt you as our own. The woods became emptied of Indians. Even members of the Turtle Clan left in large numbers. A council was held at the Sacred Rocks, and all those who were left spoke what was in their hearts. There were no more great fires as there had been long ago. These would only alert the white enemy to the Indians' presence. "We were a hidden people, at a hidden council," Joe said. They asked the Great Spirit to guide them in the right path, to give each family the plan best for it. They used great medicine words, words unspoken during all the years of peace. They brought forth amulets hidden for so long that none remembered their origin. These were times when only the strongest medicine might bring some answer, if answers still existed at all. When the council ended, the old man went on, only 2 families had decided to stay in the old places. These were the families of Long Canoe, my great-grandfather, and that of Torn Moccasin. Long Canoe had a wife, 1 son, and 2 daughters. Torn Moccasin had no wife, as she had died, but had 2 sons. They made their parting that night, and all promised to see the others again. Long Canoe wished them well, and said that if the spirits did not decree their meeting again, he was sure that the Maker had prepared wigwams that would be close together, for all of them to live as neighbors in the happy hunting ground. When Long Canoe and Torn Moccasin awoke in the morning, the others were gone. The strong Turtle clan now consisted of 8 people. During the winter, 2 of these were buried, having caught the spotted sickness of the whites.